Salesforce is an excellent CRM system. After comparing with other CRM, Salesforce stands out as a winner. The main feature which makes it better than other is the flexibility in objects, its creation, and the dynamic fields and relationship. In this video I will try to explain a bit about Picklist, a common word for HTML Dropdown list. It will show how to create a custom pick list that has a dynamic list of values that need to be updated from an external source. Picklist is used everywhere. Some of it is just plain easy as yes or no, or a list can be just a fixed type which does not needs any updating. It can come from a relation, users, or can be dynamic. Here is a sample of Picklist, and I believe that there hardly any Salesforce developer who has not used Picklists at least once. To create a pick list. In order to create a pick list you will have to use Object Manager. Select Setup from top right. Then in the left, type in Object Manager. This will give you the list of all objects in the system. Select the object in which you want to add the Picklist field. I have chosen Account. Then while on Account select Fields and Relations. Choose Picklist from the options and click Next. Enter, label name. Since we are creating a custom pick list we are going to select, Enter Values, with each value separated by a new line. Enter values. We want to get through the basics and don't want our users to create their own values. Check Restrict Picklist to the values defined in the value set. Click Next. Choose from the options of users who are able to see and edit this field. Click Next. Determine what page layout this pick list is going to appear. Your page layout should be created in order for it to appear in this list. Click Save. Congratulations! You just created a pick list. What next? If you are an admin on Salesforce, then you can easily add and edit a pick list. To modify to need to. Select Setup. Go to Object Manager. Select the object where the field is defined. Click on the field. Modify and then save. Well, not easy. And if the pick list is sensitive then it can create more problem to a user. Consider this, if a form requires specific values which has to come from the company's own pick list which resides on some database. This pick list changes periodically and it is crucial that the SF form must be using correct pick list data at all times. The administrator will have to compare the values from time to time and make adjustments. What if the administrator is not available? Definitely we need a process which can add / delete and modify these sensitive pick list dynamically. We do not want the admin to go to the field level setup and add values to the pick list as this will delay the process. Also while creating pick list the default pick list makes the value and API name the same. We want separate values in these fields. We want the reference ID in place of values. There are many ways of doing it, but it all requires much coding on Salesforce. Examples are creating an SFDX project using Visual Studio Code Salesforce extension, or using Metadata API, and many others. Almost all require some coding on Salesforce and some expertise on Apex coding. The next screen will show you a simpler way of creating and managing the pick list using Postman. You can also use Angular or Visual Studio Web API to update the pick list automatically. First get the ID of the pick list fields. For example I have a pick list called Cost Center which is used on accounts. To get the ID, select the field, then the ID is shown on the URL. Also when you place your mouse over the field name, the entire URL is shown on the bottom. Jot down this ID, case sensitive, or save it on Notepad. This step is very important. If you do not have the correct ID you will get all sort of weird error messages. Fire up the Postman. Get the token. This requires you have the following information in hand. I am not detailing this information as you may be using other means of obtaining the token. Select authorization with type OAuth 2.0. Fill in the information required. Then select Post, URL is shown. You can get this information from Google. There are many sites explaining this part. Once you have the token, create a URL. This is your service URL with the following: service/data/version no/tooling/so objects, then custom field, and finally the ID. Do a get. If all is well and your account has the access level, you will get the entire information about this field including its value. Copy the entire response and save it somewhere. You will require it when you build your dynamic pick list. This is the metadata section. You will concentrate on this section. This is the sample of the section where the actual values lies. Each pick list item has 7 elements. Unique is active, label and value name. The rest can be omitted unless you are using it. Create a metadata from the information you have saved. This is the barebone structure. I have omitted all the null values. The value section is where you are creating the list of new and existing pick list items. Programmatically, I have the entire array from the database and I use for each to create such. Once you have the metadata file created, you are now ready to update the Salesforce. Please pay attention to full name value and the label value. These cannot be empty. Copy the entire metadata into the body section of the Postman. Using the same URL, change the method to patch. And click send. If the metadata has been constructed properly, you will get this response. If the metadata NAS an error, then you will get an error which will detail where the fault lies. Since the metadata is a JSON file, it is good practice to test the file before pasting it in the body section. Back in Salesforce, you will notice that the fields which were not included in the meta file are moved to inactive values. If you need these values, you can either update it manually or include them in the metadata and make sure is active is true. Once you have the confidence using Postman, you can now create a gateway. I have used this Angular 11, which picks up the file from a DB construct, a valid JSON file, and uploads it to Salesforce. Here is the snippet I have in Web API, which works like wonder. I am able to update all of the pick lists in Salesforce automatically. The values are always in sync with our local application. Reach out for more details. My website is www.sigmasailor.com.